When did this happen and for why?
Oh, for context, we are talking about my hair, which you really can't see with the headset on. I will show the internet. This happened yesterday, and for why is, well, there are several explanations that I have given. One is always be yourself unless you can be Annie Lennox, and then always be Annie Lennox.
Yeah.
The other personal favorite.
Do you need more than that?
I mean, my other favorite is I've never half-assed anything in my life. I'm not starting with the apocalypse.
Yeah, that's good too.
But mostly I just had clippers. And henna.
Excellent. Yeah, we're the redheaded peoples now.
Yes, we can say, look, it's natural. Look at just look at my sister. She has red hair too.
That's right. Many years ago, the first time I hennaed my hair, it looked so natural people started asking me why I dyed my eyebrows.
Checks out. If I had bleach, I probably would have gone blonde because I feel like that also could be a look, but I did not have any.
Analytics. That's much more Lennox-like. I don't know what I'm doing with this. I'm just having some fun over here with my light source. What I need are reflectors. I don't have. Well, Jason has them. I could ask him for them. I have just not done that yet. It's my turn to read. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I read last time.
My copy that I've been reading, I left somewhere. I think it's in my luggage somewhere from going to Mom's. So these ones that I brought out to show you the pretty covers are going to have to be the ones that I read today. I mean, not
okay.
So this is the beauty. Oh,
they're so cool.
They're so cool.
Right, well, I will adjust my camera to. Oh, I think you gave me this shirt. Now that I think about it.
If I didn't, I'm wishing I had, because that's so awesome.
I'm pretty sure it was you.
Excellent. It's not one that I made, though.
No, it's from Hot Topic, I think.
We're not at chapter 5. We're not even at the shortcut to mushrooms.
We are at the shortcut to mushrooms. We started shortcut to mushrooms last night.
Did? You woke refreshed. You're right. Good heavens, we're not eating. Num.
Oh gosh, where did we end?
Shortcuts make long delays.
Yes, yeah, so I think at the end of that section.
Right.
But somewhere around there. Anyways.
The country is rough round here, and there are bogs and all kinds of difficulties down in the Marish. I know the land in these parts. And if you are worrying about black riders, I can't see that it is any worse meeting them on a road than in a wood or a field. It is less easy to find people in the woods and fields, answered Frodo. And if supposed to be on the road, there is some chance that you will be looked for on the road, and not off it. All right, said Pippin. I will follow you into every bog and ditch. But it is hard. I had counted on passing the Golden Perch at Stock before sundown. The best beer in the East Farthing, or used to be. It is a long time since I tasted it. That settles it, said Frodo. Short cuts may make delays, but inns make longer ones. At all costs, we must keep you away from the Golden Perch. We want to get to Bucklebury before dark. What do you say, Sam? I will go along with you, Mr. Frodo, said Sam, in spite of private misgivings and a deep regret for the best beer in the East Farthing. Then if we are going to toil through bog and briar, let's go now, said Pippin. It was already nearly as hot as it had been the day before, but clouds were beginning to come up from the west. It looked likely to turn to rain. The hobbits, we could really use some rain. Oh, dear God. I
want rain. We had snow a couple days ago.
Yeah, but it's not the same.
Well, true.
Dusting. It looked like those ginger sugar cookies.
Yeah, we got a couple inches, so I think we got a bit more than you.
Yeah. The hobbits scrambled down a steep green bank and plunged into the thick trees below. Their course had been chosen to leave Woodhall to their left, and to cut slanting through the woods that clustered along the eastern side of the hill until they reached the flat beyond. Then they could make straight for the ferry over country that was open except for a few ditches and fences. Frodo reckoned they had 18 miles to go in a straight line. He soon found that the thicket was closer and more tangled than it had appeared. There were no paths in the undergrowth, and they did not get on very fast. When they had struggled to the bottom of the bank, they found a stream running down from the hills behind in a deeply dug bed, with steep, slippery sides overhung with brambles. Most inconveniently, it cut across the line that they had chosen. They could not jump over it, nor indeed get across it at all without getting wet, scratched, and muddy. They halted, wondering what to do. "First check," said Pippin, smiling grimly. Sam Gamgee looked back. Through an opening in the trees, he caught a glimpse of the top of the green bank from which they had climbed down. "Look," he said, clutching Frodo by the arm. They all looked, and on the edge, high above them, they saw against the sky a horse standing. Beside it stooped a black figure. They at once gave up any idea of going back. Frodo led the way and plunged quickly into the thick bushes beside the stream. "Whew," he said to Pippin. "We were both right. The short cut has gone crooked already, but we got under cover only just in time. You've got sharp ears, Sam. Can you hear anything coming?" They stood still, almost holding their breath as they listened, but there was no sound of pursuit. "I don't fancy he would try bringing his horse down that bank," said Sam, "but I guess he knows we came down it. We had better be going on." Going on was not altogether easy. They had packs to carry, and the bushes and brambles were reluctant to let them through. They were cut off from the wind by the ridge behind, and the air was still and stuffy. When they forced their way at last into more open ground, they were hot and tired and very scratched, and they were also no longer certain of the direction in which they were going. The banks of the stream sank as it reached the levels and became broader and shallower, wandering off toward the Marish and the river. "Why, this is the Stockbrook," said Pippin. "If we are going to try and get back onto our course, we must cross at once and bear right." They waded the stream and hurried over a wide open space, rush-grown and treeless on the further side. Beyond that they came again to a belt of trees, tall oaks for the most part, with here and there an elm or an ash. The ground was fairly level, and there was little undergrowth, but the trees were too close for them to see far ahead. The leaves blew upwards in sudden gusts of wind, and spots of rain began to fall from the overcast sky.
You know what this is reminding me of? And this will be a very niche anecdote. The Forbidden Grove.
Yes, absolutely.
So for those who are at the rest of the world who don't know what that means, we used to hang out on a chunk of uncultivated land in our hometown, and one of the things that was on it was this very, very thick, dense grove of trees. And every time we tried to get in there to see like what was in there, because we were kids and that's what you do, we kept getting hurt.
Yeah, like the branches would whip at our faces unprovoked. Like we didn't we decided it must be fairies because it was just impossible to get through, and it shouldn't have been. And there was this one day we made Sculpey fairies. We were like, we're going to put fairies in the fairy grove. We're going to do this thing, and we made them. They were really pretty, like, I don't know, not even a couple dozen, like a dozen figurines that we made.
Yeah, at the most, yeah.
And we were army crawling, and we were getting scratched, and it was ridiculous, and it looked like wildlife had been through there, but the branches had taken over, and And then we got to what the trees were hiding and the bushes and the thorns and crap. And it was this beautiful little glade with like grass and a wall of greenery around it. And we went to hang up the fairies, which we did, but we felt so unwelcome. We were cringing, and we were like putting off leaving because we were already bleeding, and we were like, we don't want to do that again. So we hung up the last time. We were like, okay, we're leaving, and we turned to leave, and there was a path. Do you remember this?
No,
There
I don't
was.
remember that bit.
It was not like wide open fairy tale, like, oh god, this is spooky path, but it was the same way we had come and had such a miserable time with, was an open path on the way out. Heather doesn't remember because she was 9. They were 9. How old were you?
I would have been 8 or 9.
Yeah, I was 17, so I remember this clearly, and we were all pretty spooked, and we never went back in there. Or tried. Do you remember making the fairies at least? We spent like days with them.
Yeah, I remember that bit. Anyway.
Yeah, I climbed P Hill once, which is the hill with the letter P on it that's part of Paonia. And there was a point where I had to cross an irrigation ditch and couldn't, and had a miserable time with it, and ended up getting pretty torn up the whole time. And that's what this makes me think of, is my trip up to the top of the hill in the pathless wilds of Paonia. I can't believe you don't remember the path being there. That makes it sound like I'm lying, but I'm totally not.
I mean, I believe you. I don't know what to tell you. I need scissors and water. I will return.
Okay, I will read. The leaves, overcast sky. Then the wind died away and the rain came streaming down. They trudged along as fast as they could over patches of grass and through thick drifts of old leaves, and all about them the rain pattered and trickled. They did not talk, but kept glancing back and from side to side. After half an hour, Pippin said, I hope we have not turned too much towards the south and are not walking longwise through this wood. It is not a very broad belt. I should have said no more than a mile at the widest, and we ought to have been through it by now. It is no good us starting to go in zigzags, said Frodo. That won't mend matters. Let us keep on as we are going. I am not sure that I want to come out into the open yet. It's really surreal to be reading to an empty room right there. There, right there. They went on for perhaps... Yay, they're back! They went on for perhaps another couple of miles. Then the sun gleamed out of ragged clouds again, and the rain lessened. It was now past midday, and they felt it was high time for lunch. They halted under an elm tree. Its leaves, though fast turning yellow, were still thick, and the ground at its feet was fairly dry and sheltered. When they came to make their meal, they found that the elves had filled their bottles with a clear drink, pale golden in color. It had the scent of a honey made of many flowers, and was wonderfully refreshing. Not to be a nitpicker, but all honey is made from many flowers.
I mean, that's not necessarily true. Honey is made from many flowers if you let the bees do whatever they want. But if you cart a beehive around to, for example, I don't know, an almond field and let the bees only be in that giant, like, almond farm.
It's entirely the wrong way to treat bees, and I hope we figure it out before we drive them to extinction. Anyway, he doesn't say many types of flowers. He says many flowers.
Oh, well, I mean, yes. In that case.
Right? But still, it's an evocative phrase, and I've always loved it. I just make fun of it because I'm a nerd and I get to do that. It was wonderfully refreshing. Very soon they were laughing and snapping their fingers at rain and at black riders. The last few miles, they felt, would soon be behind them. Short song alert. Frodo propped his back against the tree trunk and closed his eyes. Sam and Pippin sat near, and they began to hum. You're being loud, my darling.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll mute myself.
Cool. Sam and Pippin sat near, and they began to hum, and then to sing softly. I don't have a tune for this, so we'll just do it as poetry. Ho, 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 to the bottle I go, to heal my heart and drown my woe. Rain may fall. Oh, yeah, this is a Merry and Pippin song in the movie. Rain may fall and wind may blow, and many miles be still to go. But under a tall tree I will lie, and let the clouds go sailing by. Ho, 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 they began again louder. They stopped short suddenly. Frodo sprang to his feet. A long-drawn wail came down the wind like the cry of some evil and lonely creature. It rose and fell and ended on a high, piercing note. Even as they sat and stood as if suddenly frozen, it was answered by another cry, fainter and further off, but no less chilling to the blood. There was then a silence broken only by the sound of the wind in the leaves. And what do you think that was? Pippin asked at last, trying to speak lightly, but quavering a little. If it was a bird, it was one that I never heard in the Shire before. It was not bird or beast, said Frodo. It was a call or a signal. There were words in that cry, though I could not catch them. But no hobbit has such a voice. No more was said about it. They were all thinking of the riders, but no one spoke of them. They were now reluctant either to stay or go on, but sooner or later they had got to get across the open country to the ferry, and it was best to go sooner and in daylight. In a few moments they had shouldered their packs again and were off. Before long the wood came to a sudden end. Wide grasslands stretched before them. They now saw that they had, in fact, turned too much to the south. Away over the flats they could glimpse the low hill of Bucklebury across the river, but it was now to their left. Creeping cautiously out from the edge of the trees, they set off across the open as quickly as they could. At first they felt afraid, away from the shelter of the wood. Far back behind them stood the high place where they had breakfasted. Frodo half expected to see the small, distant figure of a horseman on the ridge dark against the sky, but there was no sign of one. The sun, escaping from the breaking clouds as it sank toward the hills they had left, was now shining brightly again. Their fear left them, though they still felt uneasy, but the land became steadily more tame and well-ordered. Soon they came into well-tended fields and meadows. There were hedges and gates and dikes for drainage. Everything seemed quiet and peaceful. Having an issue with the phrase dikes for drainage?
I wouldn't say an issue. I was just thinking, everything's going to be okay as long as there's dikes.
It's true. There's words to live by right there. Yes, it is the sign of a quiet and well-ordered country.
Indeed.
Just an ordinary corner of the Shire. Their spirits rose with every step. The line of the river grew nearer, and the black riders began to seem like phantoms of the woods now left far behind. They passed along.
That ain't gonna last.
Right? They're very optimistic, aren't they?
Always, yes. With very little cause.
Oh, they just haven't been through anything yet. They passed along the edge of a huge turnip field and came to a stout gate. Beyond it, a rutted lane ran between low, well-laid hedges toward a distant clump of trees. Pippin stopped. I know these fields and this gate, he said. We are on old Farmer Maggot's land. That must be his farm away there in the trees. One trouble after another, said Frodo, looking nearly as much alarmed as if Pippin had declared the lane was the slot leading to a dragon's den. The others looked at him in surprise. What's wrong with old Maggot? Asked Pippin. He's a good friend to all the Brandybucks. Of course, he's a terror to trespassers and keeps ferocious dogs. But after all, folk down here are near the border and have to be more on their guard. I know, said Frodo. But all the same, he added with a shamefaced laugh, I am terrified of him and his dogs. I have avoided his farm for years and years. He caught me several times trespassing after mushrooms when I was a youngster at Brandy Hall. On the last occasion, he beat me and then took me and showed me to his dogs. See, lads, he said, next time this young varmint sets foot on my land, you can eat him. Now see him off. They chased me all the way to the ferry. I have never got over the fright, though I dare say the beasts knew their business and would not really have touched me. Pippin laughed. Well, it's time you made it up, especially if you're coming back to live in Buckland. Old Maggot is really a stout fellow, if you leave his mushrooms alone. Let's get into the lane, and then we shan't be trespassing. If we meet him, I'll do the talking. He's a friend of Mary's, and I used to come here with him a good deal at one time. They went along the lane until they saw the thatched roofs of a large house and farm buildings peeping out among the trees ahead. The Maggots and the Puddiefoots of Stock and most of the inhabitants of the Marish were house-dwellers, and his farm was stoutly built of brick and had a high wall all around it. There was a wide wooden gate opening out of the wall into the lane. Suddenly, as they drew nearer, a terrific baying and barking broke out, and a loud voice was heard shouting, Grip, Fang, Wolf, come on, lads! Frodo and Sam stopped dead, but Pippin walked on a few paces. The gate opened, and 3 huge dogs came pelting out into the lane and dashed toward the travelers, barking fiercely. They took no notice of Pippin, but Sam shrank against the wall while 2 wolfish-looking dogs sniffed at him suspiciously and snarled if he moved. The largest and most ferocious of the 3 halted in front of Frodo, bristling and growling. It took me a couple of reads to realize that a large dog to a hobbit is like neck high, and that must be totally petrifying.
You know, I was just thinking, like, are they large dogs or are they large compared to hobbits? So that answers that question. And yeah, that would be very terrifying.
Right? If they're Great Danes or something, they're taller than hobbits. Shit. Being savaged by a pony. Through the gate, and honestly, that's just my opinion. He never says how big the dogs are, but wolfish, we're going to go with wolf-sized.
Well, if they're wolf-sized, they'd be like, yeah, definitely taller than hobbits. Wolves are giant.
Wolves are pretty freaking big. Anyway, petrifying. Let's see. Through the gate there now appeared a broad, thick-set hobbit with a round, red face. Hello, hello. Who may you be, and what may you be wanting? He asked. Good afternoon, Mr. Maggot, said Pippin. The farmer looked at him closely. Well, if it isn't Master Pippin, Mr. Peregrine Took, I should say, he cried, changing from a scowl to a grin. It's a long time since I saw you around here. It's lucky for you that I know you. I was just going out to set my dogs on any strangers. There are some funny things going on today. Of course, we do get queer folk wandering in these parts at times. Too near the river, he said, shaking his head. But this fellow was the most outlandish I have ever set eyes on. He won't cross my land without leave a second time, not if I can help it. What fellow do you mean? Asked Pippin. Then you haven't seen him, said the farmer. He went up the lane towards the causeway not a long while back. He was a funny customer and asking funny questions. But perhaps you'll come along inside and we'll pass the news more comfortable. I've a drop of good ale on tap if you and your friends are willing, Mr. Took. It seemed plain that the farmer would tell them more if allowed to do it in his own time and fashion, so they all accepted the invitation. "What about the dogs?" asked Frodo anxiously. The farmer laughed. "They won't harm you. Not unless I tell them to. Here, Grip, Fang, heel," he cried. "Heel, Wolf." To the relief of Frodo and Sam, the dogs walked away and let them go free. Pippin introduced the other two to the farmer. "Mr. Frodo Baggins," he said. "You may not remember him, but he used to live at Brandy Hall." At the name Baggins, the farmer started and gave Frodo a sharp glance. For a moment, Frodo thought that the memory of stolen mushrooms had been aroused and that the dogs would be told to see him off. But Farmer Maggot took him by the arm. "Well, if that isn't queerer than ever," he exclaimed. "Mr. Baggins, is it? Come inside. We must have a talk." They went into the farmer's kitchen and sat by the wide fireplace. Mrs. Maggot brought out beer in a huge jug and filled 4 large mugs. It was a good brew, and Pippin found himself more than compensated for missing the golden perch. Sam sipped his beer suspiciously. He had a natural mistrust of the inhabitants of other parts of the Shire, and also he was not disposed to be quick friends with anyone who had beaten his master, however long ago. Blah, blah, blah. That's my job.
No, I don't think Sam is the dom in this relationship.
I wasn't talking for Sam. And you're right. Well, no, you're totally right. After a few remarks about the weather and the agricultural prospects, which were no worse than usual, Farmer Maggot put down his mug and looked at them all in turn. "Now, Mr. Peregrine," he said, "where might you be coming from, and where might you be going to? Were you coming to visit me? For if so, you had gone past my gate without my seeing you." "Well, no," answered Pippin. "To tell you the truth, since you have guessed it, we got into the lane from the other end. We had come over your fields, but that was quite by accident. We lost our way in the woods back near Woodhull, trying to take a shortcut to the ferry." "If you were in a hurry, the road would have served you better," said the farmer. "But I wasn't worrying about that. You have leave to walk over my land, if you have a mind, Mr. Peregrine. And you, Mr. Baggins, though I dare say you still like mushrooms." He laughed. "Ah, yes, I recognize the name. I recollect the time when young Frodo Baggins was one of the worst young rascals of Buckland. But it wasn't mushrooms I was thinking of. I had just heard the name Baggins before you turned up. What do you think that funny customer asked me?" They waited anxiously for him to go on. "Well," the farmer continued, approaching his point with slow relish, "he came riding on a big black horse in at the gate, which happened to be open, and right up to my door. All black he was himself, too, and cloaked and hooded up as if he did not want to be known. Now what in the Shire can he want? I thought to myself. We don't see many of the big folk over the border, and anyway I had never heard of any like this black fellow. 'Good day to you,' I says, going out to him. 'This lane don't lead anywhere, and wherever you may be going, your quickest way will be back to the road.' I didn't like the looks of him, and when Grip came out, he took one sniff and let out a yelp as if he had been stung, put down his tail and bolted off howling. The black fellow sat quite still. 'I come from yonder,' he said, slow and stiff-like, pointing back west, 'over my fields, if you please.' 'Have you seen Baggins?' he asked in a queer voice, and bent down towards me. I could not see any face, for his hood fell down so low, and I felt a sort of shiver down my back. But I did not see why he should come riding over my land so bold. 'Be off,' I said. 'There are no Bagginses here. You're in the wrong part of the Shire. You'd better go back west to Hobbiton, but you can go by the road this time. Baggins is left, he answered in a whisper. He is coming. He is not far away. I wish to find him. If he passes, will you tell me? I will come back with gold. No, you won't, I said. You'll go back where you belong double quick. I'll give you 1 minute before I call all my dogs. He gave a sort of hiss. It might have been laughing, and it might not. Then he spurred his great horse right at me, and I jumped out of the way only just in time. I called the dogs, but he swung off and rode through the gate and up the lane toward the causeway like a bolt of thunder. What do you think of that? Frodo sat for a moment looking at the fire, but his only thought was how on earth would they reach the ferry? I don't know what to think, he said at last. Then I'll tell you what to think, said Maggot. You should never have gone mixing yourself up with Hobbiton folk, Mr. Frodo. Folk are queer up there.
Yes, that's what it is. It's those Hobbiton people.
Sam stirred in his chair and looked at the farmer with an unfriendly eye. But you were always a reckless lad. When I heard you had left the Brandybucks and gone off to that old Mr. Bilbo, I said that you were going to find trouble. Mark my word, this all comes of those strange doings of Mr. Bilbo's. His money was got in some strange fashion in foreign parts, they say. Maybe there is some that want to know what has become of the gold and jewels that he buried in the hill of Hobbiton, as I hear. Frodo said nothing. The shrewd guesses of the farmer were rather disconcerting. Well, Mr. Frodo, Maggot went on, I'm glad that you've had the sense to come back to Buckland. My advice is, stay there. And don't get mixed up with these outlandish folk. You'll have friends in these parts. If any of these black fellows come after you again, I'll deal with them. I'll say you're dead, or have left the Shire, or anything you like. And that might be true enough, for as like as not it is old Mr. Bilbo they want news of. Maybe you're right, said Frodo, avoiding the farmer's eyes and staring at the fire. Maggot looked at him thoughtfully. Well, I see you have ideas of your own, he said. It is as plain as my nose that no accident brought you and that rider here on the same afternoon. And maybe my news was no great news to you after all. I'm not asking you to tell me anything you have a mind to keep to yourself, but I see you're in some kind of trouble. Perhaps you are thinking it won't be too easy to get to the ferry without being caught. I was thinking so, said Frodo. But we've got to try and get there, and it won't be done by sitting and thinking. So I'm afraid we must be going. Thank you very much indeed for your kindness. I've been in terror of you and your dogs for over 30 years, Farmer Maggot, though you may laugh to hear it. It's a pity, for I've missed a good friend, and now I'm sorry to leave so soon, but I'll come back perhaps one day, if I get a chance. You'll be welcome when you come, said Maggot. But now I've a notion. It's near sundown already, and we are going to have our supper, for we mostly go to bed soon after the sun. If you and Mr. Peregrine and all could stay and have a bite with us, we would be pleased. And so should we, said Frodo. But we must be going at once, I'm afraid. Even now it will be dark before we can reach the ferry. Ah, but wait a minute. I was going to say, after a bit of supper, I'll get out a small wagon, and I'll drive you all to the ferry. That will save you a good step, and it might also save you trouble of another sort. Frodo now accepted the invitation gratefully, to the relief of Pippin and Sam. The sun was already behind the western hills, and the light was failing. 2 of Maggot's sons and his 3 daughters came in, and a generous supper was laid on the large table. The kitchen was lit with candles, and the fire was mended. Mrs. Maggot bustled in and out. 1 or 2 other hobbits belonging to the farm household came in. In a short while, 14 sat down to eat. There was beer in plenty, and a mighty dish of mushrooms and bacon, besides much other solid farmhouse fare. The dogs lay by the fire and gnawed rinds and cracked bones. When they had finished, the farmer and his sons went out with a lantern and got the wagon ready. It was dark in the yard when the guests came out. They threw their packs on board and climbed in. The farmer sat in the driving seat and whipped up his 2 stout ponies. His wife stood in the light of the open door. "You be careful of yourself, Maggot," she called. "Don't go arguing with any foreigners, and come straight back." "I will," said he, and drove out of the gate. Don't go arguing with foreigners.
I mean, if they're actually Nazgul, then it's not particularly recommended.
And I mean, it's good advice in general. It's very unconvivial to argue with strangers to your land.
That is true.
Yeah.
It's very true.
At least let them find their feet, and then you can argue. There was now no breath of wind stirring. The night was still and quiet, and a chill was in the air. They went without lights, and took it slowly. After a mile or 2, the lane came to an end, crossing a deep dike and climbing a short slope onto the high-banked causeway. Maggot got down and took a good look either way, north and south, but nothing could be seen in the darkness, and there was not a sound in the still air. Thin strands of river mist were hanging above the dikes and crawling over the fields. "It's going to be thick," said Maggot, "but I'll not light my lanterns till I turn for home. We'll hear anything on the road long before we meet it tonight." It was 5 miles or more from Maggot's Lane to the ferry. The hobbits wrapped themselves up, but their ears were strained for any sound above the creak of the wheels and the slow clop of the ponies' hoofs. The wagon seemed slower than a snail to Frodo. Beside him, Pippin was nodding towards sleep, but Sam was staring forwards into the rising fog. They reached the entrance to the ferry lane at last. It was marked by 2 tall white posts that suddenly loomed up on their right. Farmer Maggot drew in his ponies, and the wagon creaked to a halt. They were just beginning to scramble out when suddenly they heard what they had all been dreading: hoofs on the road ahead. The sound was coming towards them. Maggot jumped down and stood holding the ponies' heads and peering forward into the gloom. Clip, clop, clip, clop came the approaching rider. The fall of the hoofs sounded loud in the still, foggy air. "You'd better be hidden, Mr. Frodo," said Sam anxiously. "You get down in the wagon and cover up with blankets, and we'll send this rider to the right-abouts." He climbed out and went to the farmer's side. Black riders would have to ride over him to get near the wagon. Clop, 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 clop. The rider was nearly on them. "Hello there!" called Farmer Maggot. The advancing hoofs stopped short. They thought they could dimly guess a dark, cloaked shape in the mist, a yard or 2 ahead. "Now then," said the farmer, throwing the reins to Sam and striding forward, "don't you come a step nearer. What do you want, and where are you going?" "I want Mr. Baggins. Have you seen him?" said a muffled voice. But the voice was the voice of Merry Brandybuck. A dark lantern was uncovered, and its light fell on the astonished face of the farmer. "Mr. Merry!" he cried. "Yes, of course. Who did you think it was?" said Merry, coming forward. As he came out of the mist and their fears subsided, he seemed suddenly to diminish to ordinary hobbit size. He was riding a pony, and a scarf was swathed round his neck and over his chin to keep out the fog. Frodo sprang out of the wagon to greet him. "So there you are at last," said Merry. "I was beginning to wonder if you would turn up at all today, and I was just going back to supper. When it grew foggy, I came across and rode up towards Stock to see if you had fallen in any ditches. But I'm blessed if I know which way you have come. Where did you find them, Mr. Maggot? In your duck pond? No, I caught him trespassing, said the farmer, and nearly set my dogs on him. But they'll tell you all the story, I've no doubt. Now, if you'll excuse me, Mr. Merry and Mr. Frodo and all, I'd best be turning for home. Mrs. Maggot will be worriting with the night getting thick. He backed the wagon into the lane and turned it. Well, good night to you all, he said. It's been a queer day and no mistake. But all's well as ends well, though perhaps we should not say that until we reach our own doors. I'll not deny that I'll be glad now when I do. He lit his lanterns and got up. Suddenly he produced a large basket from under the seat. I was nearly forgetting, he said. Mrs. Maggot put this up for Mr. Baggins with her compliments. He handed it down and moved off, followed by a chorus of thanks and good nights. They watched the pale rings of light round his lanterns as they dwindled into the foggy night. Suddenly Frodo laughed. From the covered basket he held, the scent of mushrooms was rising. End of chapter! Woo!
End of chapter!
Oh, I had a thing to share with you.
Yes.
The Hulk is Boromir.
Yep, that checks out.
Yeah. Doesn't say much, does have a lot of input when it comes to strategy, but big and tough and broad-shouldered and forges paths when there aren't any, and rages out on his friend once.
And makes a really terrible decision out of really, really good motives.
Right, wants to protect his people. Yeah.
Yeah, that checks out.
So yeah, I was having trouble casting Bruce, but the Hulk fits fine. And Boromir's double nature works really well with the Banner Hulk double nature, so.
Yeah. Yep, that works for me.
All right, cool. Aye. It's 7:48, so I don't know if you wanted to start the next chapter or chit-chat for 10 or cut it short.
I mean, we could chit-chat a wee bit, or I don't mind. I know we cut it short last time too, but I'm gonna make some brownies tonight, so you know.
I already made some.
That kind of night.
Oh, Carmen was here. My niece, my 6-year-old niece, and she and Avi, when he's left to himself, he likes essential oils, but he knows to just do a dab. And she knows it too, but she's 6, so she got a hold of my peppermint essential oil and used like a tablespoon. The house was like a peppermint bomb. It was so good. And it was like, and she's also at that age where you're like, when you say, what did you do? She's like, nothing. And you're like, that will not fly.
Yeah. Peppermint's a tough one.
Yeah.
Peppermint's a tough one to have around kids too, because it numbs your throat, and the younger kids don't always have the ability to like regulate that.
Yeah.
So it's not good.
He's not good. We had to open all the windows and doors, and like I had to wash off, because both the kids, since she had spilled it on herself, they both just covered their hands in it and were like, oh, now we can be massage therapists. And I was like, no, now you're washing your hands in white vinegar. All my kids had to learn the hard way that the only thing I won't tolerate is being lied to. Freaking hate that. Otherwise, I'm pretty chill, mostly. That might be a lie.
I mean, I myself have a line in my online dating profile that says I've heard of chill, but I've never personally seen any.
Ah, yeah, that's kind of a thing. Oh,
Actually, I'm gonna wait a bit on that.
how's sheltering in place treating you?
Oh, we're making it work. We're surviving. I mean, I miss being able to go and do things, but
Yeah, today's the last day of our anniversary. It's like, well, here are some brownies.
yep, pretty much.
Oh, that was the finish of the story. We always have Ghirardelli brownie mix, and I made Ghirardelli brownies, but I tend to add stuff. Like you can add, and Abby chose peppermint, which was hilarious after yesterday. But usually it's like we can do orange, lemon, orange flower water, and everyone's favorite is the Mayan brownies, where you add like a couple tablespoons of instant coffee and
Mhm.
cinnamon and cayenne. Oh, it's so good. Are you making yours from scratch?
Yeah, I found a recipe for camo brownies. So it's you make. I know it sounds. You're like, but
Oh no, like I am intrigued.
so you make a batch of cream cheese filling, and then you separate it in half, and you make half of it chocolate flavored. And
Okay.
then you make the brownie batter and you marble it with the chocolate cream cheese and the regular cream cheese.
Okay, that sounds amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's a Bon Appetit recipe, and they really got me with that YouTube channel. I trust them a lot now.
They're so cute. And I
I
find
love
people
them.
referencing them like all the time. I adore binging with Babish. I watch a lot of binging with Babish, and now he's got this have you heard about the contest?
No?
Or drawing? It's a drawing. So there's a drawing. When the quarantine is lifted, when there's either a vaccine or we've all got antibodies or the world is otherwise safe, is going to take a fan to New Zealand to tour Weta Workshop, see all the Lord of the Rings memorabilia, and then cook a second breakfast with him. So
So
yeah,
you should definitely enter that drawing.
already did. Already did, but I have a long history of not winning things, so I'm not like that. It's peculiar. If some people win everything and some people win sometimes, and I'm not. I apparently checked the opt out of winning stuff box before being born because it's almost uncanny. But I tried because
Hey,
it sounds like such an amazing time.
that does sound pretty cool.
Yeah. I want to do it so much, my precious.
Yeah, I love Bon Appetit videos. I've watched some binging with Babish. I haven't watched a super ton of it, although I love his collab videos with Brad.
Yes, those two are freaking hilarious. Have you seen Brad and Jimmy DiResta collabing on the grill?
Yeah, I think I watched that one with you.
I think you're right.
I also really like the Brad and the Hot Ones guy. I forget his name. That one's funny.
Yeah. I can't remember his name either. YouTubers. We live in a hilarious society where everyone's like, scoff YouTube. That is not a career. It is a blah blah. And then the rest of us are like, yeah, but I want that. I want to
I
be
mean,
a YouTuber.
YouTubers can make a lot of money if they're successful.
Oh, fuck the money. Well, I mean, I could use the money, absolutely, but that's not really my MO. I just want to be like creating something that inspires people.
Yeah, no, I didn't think that was your MO. I'm just saying when people are like, "Oh, that's not a real career."
Yeah.
It's like, well, it makes real money, so
So ipso facto, real is yeah.
there's
Maybe those people are convinced that for it to be a real career, you have to hate it. Like maybe
I don't know.
people who are like, no, never try to earn money doing something you're passionate about because then you'll start to hate it. So try to earn money doing things you don't like. I have heard this is actual advice. This is a philosophy people have.
I mean, I definitely have things that I enjoy doing that I would hate if I had to do them for money, but
I can't think of any. I guess it depends on the amount of money, and it depends on which type of work. Like if I, as a painter, was told that I need to paint signs for the next 40 years in order to make a paycheck, that might get a little old.
yeah, well, people offer me money for my knitting a lot. And it's like, first of all, you can't afford what it would be worth because
Yeah.
it takes a lot longer than you think it does.
Yeah.
A lot longer. But also, if I was being paid for it, then I would have to do what they want me to do. And then it's not fun for me because I'm not doing what I want to do. And I already don't have enough time to knit everything I want to knit. Like, I'm not short on projects.
Right? People who run out of projects are so like unicorns to me.
I don't think that's a real thing. I don't know anyone who does any sort of art or craft who ever runs out of projects.
Right? Or you can get artist's block, but you don't get artists like empty.
Unless I guess Harper Lee did. Like, she only ever wrote one book. We're not
yeah.
counting Go Set a Watchman. That's not a real thing.
No,
that released.
That didn't happen. Yeah, I read in a letter she wrote once that she really, really wished she hadn't gotten all of the fame for To Kill a Mockingbird because she ended up with like 40 years of artist or author's block, writer's block, because now she's Harper Lee.
Do
you even live up to that?
I don't know.
Right? We still love you, Harper. Wherever you are. I hope the writer's block is gone.
I'm not making that face with you, but I support you morally.
Okay.
I was trying to take a picture of my hair. I swear this is relevant, mildly. I was trying to take a picture of my hair, which is very difficult to photograph, not least because I don't know what color it actually is. Depending on the light, we're anywhere from auburn to nacho cheese Dorito.
Fantastic. It's mood hair.
Basically, when is my mood nacho cheese? Okay, no, that's fair.
You have answered the answer's in the question.
All right, that checks out. But anyway, I was trying to get a picture of it, and I tried to make the like devil horns, you know? Like I was trying to be edgy and cool and whatever, except I forgot that they go this way and not this way. So I have a picture of myself doing this, which is not a thing.
It is. I think we're back to the dykes make everything better at that point.
No, you're thinking of this. That's different.
Oh, right. What about this? No,
that also goes this way. That's palm out. And that's I love you.
I've seen people do this.
Well, I don't think this is a thing. If it's a thing, I don't know what it means.
If it's a thing, comment below.
Indeed. Be kind to me. I am not cool.
Maybe you're cooler than you know. Maybe this is the gesture of awesome and you just naturally assumed it.
Sure.
Anubis. I've had arguments with my son. He's like, that's Quiet Coyote. And I'm like, it's Anubis. Anubis. Oh, this is a thing I can do. Arf. Can you do this?
Yes, you taught me to do that when I was 5.
I'm not talking to you right now. I'm talking to the rest of them.
Ah, yes. Yes.
Is that the only thing I ever taught you? If so, it's well done.
That and the one piece of advice you ever gave me, which was for your 21st birthday, don't drink cement mixers or Irish car bombs.
I don't remember giving that advice.
I mean,
that's very good advice.
It was very solid. Like, as the only piece of advice you've ever given me in my life, it really holds up.
Yeah, there's a lot of advice I would give you if you were more like me, but you're not. Like, all of the advice I would give to someone who was like me, you've already, like,
Not done?
not done, have no interest in doing, and
Yeah.
would never engage in.
That's okay. I don't have any advice for you either.
Oh, dear God. I could use it.
Couldn't we all?
Right. I could also use a suitcase full of money. Apparently, since Brown and Sebastian are 17 now, we don't get those child credits. So instead of getting we used to get like $4,000 or $5,000 back from federal tax return, right?
Mm-hmm.
This year we're getting $150.
I'm sorry, that sucks.
Yeah, and then we owe 500 to the state, so we're in the red. We're in the red all over. Jason keeps saying, "God, this is a terrible year financially," and I was like, "Will you please quit saying that? Stop saying it. You're making it more true." He doesn't believe in that, but I don't believe in gravity, and yet
It's a trick. It's because everything tends towards the center of the donut. The donut that is Earth. The Earth is shaped like a donut and the moon is the hole.
I dig. Yeah, of course.
Yep.
That. I forget where you are.
Yeah, me too. Yep, I did the same damn thing. There we go. Aw, it's like we're touching. This is so sad.
Now wash your hands.
Shan't. Actually, I will, because I'm going to go make brownies.
That's important. I love you.
I love you too.
Yeah. What were you saying?
I was saying I don't know that I can maintain an everyday schedule, so maybe we should plan for every other day.
We can do every other day. Today was Tuesday?
Yes.
Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Are any of those going to be at 2 o'clock, or are we going to stick to 7?
Those are all days I work.
7 it is.
All right.
You're on my schedule, but 7's easier to remember if it's across the board, so.
There you go.
You heard it here first, people. That is our new schedule. Come back on Thursday to hear what happens at Crick Hollow.
Indeed. Yes.
Mm.
Okay, bye-bye.
I love you. Cuidado.
I love you too. Liamas.